Good morning. Good afternoon it is. Good afternoon. My name is Shazia Khan,
Yeah.
and we're going to be doing the session today, which looks at teaching, learning, and assessment in education. It's a level 4 unit, and you'll be doing the assignment discussion as well. So it's kind of a tutorial today.
Okay.
My camera's not working, so that's going to be off. If it comes on, I'll put it on during the day. But just want to introduce myself. My name's Shazia Khan, like I have earlier, and just explaining the unit as well. It's teaching and learning and assessment in education and training. The learning outcomes, we've got 8 learning outcomes. So for this session, we're going to quite go through them quite quickly because they're quite a lot to get through. So
Yeah.
we'll go through the 8 learning outcomes and then we'll do the assignment discussion and we'll look at elements of the assignment that apply to the learning outcome. So you've got a little bit of an idea on what to do. We'll go through the
Okay.
assignment guidance with you as well and identify any areas that you struggle with or anything, okay?
Okay.
Um, and also, so this is a module specification. So it tells you about the module, how many units it is, what unit level it is, what the purpose, the aim of the unit is, to literally provide you with knowledge, understanding, and skills relating to teaching, learning, and assessment in
Like,
any state of education and training. So, this module specification is available on Moodle for you. All the resources I'm going through today will be available on Moodle for you, and you'll have access to that. So, the module
like,
specification just looks at the learning outcomes, the assessment criteria, and the contents of it. So, for example, learning outcome 1 and then 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. So what is expected in there? Learning outcome 2, and it just goes through all 8 learning outcomes there with all the expectations. So you can have a look at that in your own time.
yeah.
And it also goes through the assessment where learning outcome 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 it needs to be met to cover your 4,000 word report. So you've got an assessment of a 4,000 word report, and then you've got the brief that you need to do observation or practice, which is in Appendix 2, which I'll show you towards the end anyway, okay? So
Okay.
this is quickly going through, and these are some of the books that you can get, indicative content, okay? So this is
Okay.
quickly going through the elements of what is expected on that in regards to that. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm just going to go on to now learning outcome 1, so we can start on to learning outcome 1 for learning outcome 1. A minute. Mm. So I've got the learning outcome. So the first learning outcome is learning outcome 1. Let's just get this on. Can you see that learning outcome there?
Yeah, I can see that now.
Yes. So the first learning outcome is to understand roles and responsibility, relationships in education and training. So the purpose, like we said, is to look at teaching, learning, and assessment. You can read that in your own time. I'm not going to go through it fully because we've only got an hour
Yeah.
and you need to go through 8 learning outcomes. Indicative content, what we'll be looking at is the role of an educator and facilitator of learning. So things like they plan and they engage in lessons. We look at the indicative content for what an assessor is and what a planner is and what a resource developer is. We also look at responsibilities in the education. So mentor, someone who literally is there to support someone, safeguard to ensure any sort of well-being, safety of anyone, and then reflector, someone who continuously gives you improvements on your CPD.
Okay.
So we look at relationships in education. We've got learners. The main ones are the learners, aren't they? Really, they're the ones that we need to make sure that we build this element of trust with, and we make sure that we, encourage motivation and participation. So get them involved in classes, get them involved, get them, being able to answer questions, and make sure that there's boundaries in place. When you're teaching someone, it's really important to have that boundary of respect and, the teacher and the student element. Why do you think it's so important to have that boundary?
Sorry, can you repeat again?
Why do you think it's so important to have a boundary between you and the student?
Because like it is like the professional boundaries, you
Yeah,
can like make a connect with the student,
yeah,
and you can like they can feel safe, but at the same time
yes,
like they can feel like the professionalism.
yes,
That's why for me the boundaries
yeah,
with kids and teacher,
yeah,
and it's also safeguarding issue, which
yeah.
is, yeah, it's gonna
It's
like
really important to keep that boundary so that the learner or the student or the child at school knows, you are in charge of the class,
yeah,
and you respect them, they respect you, and having that, getting them involved as well. Learners like
yeah,
to be involved in things as well. So, having that boundary is really good. And then
yes,
other professionals is like colleagues within your workplace. So you'll have fellow colleagues, you'll have colleagues that you work with, managers, support workers. You'll have, working in a team. It's really important to work in a team because it builds that element of confidence, and you share good practice with each
yeah, it
other.
is. Yeah, I totally agree that even in my
Yeah,
school, yeah,
yeah.
I'm trying to do that.
Yeah, it's really good, really important to build that kind of element of teamwork, because if you don't
Yeah,
work as a team, I believe teamwork is really important in any job, because if you
yeah,
struggle to work in a team, you're not going to benefit from it because you can pick ideas from each other.
yeah, it's true for sure.
Yeah. And then external stakeholders are things like employers. We have awarding bodies like Ofsted and things like that, parents, guardians,
Yeah,
any sort of carers, careers, services. So
yeah,
boundaries between the roles. So maintaining the professional boundary, we make sure that we are taking responsibility.
yeah,
We are respecting people, avoiding any sort of personal involvement with the learners, and
yes,
legislation and codes of practice. It's really, really important that we follow codes of practice and any laws in place. We have Equality Act that we don't discriminate against no one, and it's inclusive, health and safety, making sure everything is safe for the child, data protection, um, to do with confidentiality, Children Act, keeping the child safe in education. And obviously, things like, professional codes of conduct. It's really, really important to follow the laws in place because we need to make sure that we're not breaching any laws.
yeah, it's true.
So 1.1, analyze your own role and responsibility. So when you're analyzing your roles and responsibility of teacher, it's really important to reflect on your own planning. It's really important to reflect on what you're doing. Reflection is really good, and getting some, advice is really important. Getting constructive criticisms, and making sure you're getting any sort of help and guidance from your, colleagues.
Yeah, it's true.
Your role in education. So the third person is the planner of learning. You have a facilitator of learning, and you have assessors who assess the workers throughout the assessment period. And then you have responsibilities in education. The third person, resource developer, reflector practitioner, and equality and inclusion. You also have safeguarding and well-being, and that's really important for any child. That making sure that we're following the Children Act and policies and procedures in place. You have assessment and feedback, record keeping, and professional boundaries. Making sure that there's boundaries between you and the learners as well.
Yes.
Critical analysis, reflecting on the teacher's role, highlights both strengths and areas for development. You need to make sure that even if there's challenges and any areas for improvement, you improve. There's nothing wrong with getting constructive feedback. I love constructive feedback because I think it helps you develop, it helps you become a better person, and it makes you, developing your training and your CPD and things. So it's
Yeah.
really, really important to make sure that you don't take that as criticism of your job. It's a way of developing more than criticism.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, Bullen, it's very, very important to get some feedback.
Yeah,
Um,
because even in my job, maybe
yes.
I'm a PE teacher in special needs school, like PE
Okay.
instructor, not a teacher. That's why we are
Oh,
getting
wow.
this course. Yeah, and also I'm working as a TA. Actually, is like
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah.
both sides, and teacher
Yes. Yes.
side,
Yeah,
and
you can.
at the same time the teaching assistant side. Whatever I'm
Yeah.
saying, like I don't mind about like even the aggressive feedback, you know,
Yeah.
because like, which is sometimes good, you can realize, or like you can think about this and you
Yes.
can develop yourself. Yeah, I
Yes.
totally agree with
You
that.
can improve. If you have to attend any training courses, you can improve and get better.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
So 1.2, summarize key aspects of legislation. So Equality Act, making sure that we have a duty to treat everyone fairly.
Yeah,
Things like if children are disabled, we are inclusive and we are diverse in the classroom, not being discriminatory towards anyone because of their protected characteristics, age, gender, disability, anything like that. Okay. Health and
yeah,
safety in the workplace, making sure that the teachers know that the place that the children are coming to are safe. There's no risk, there's risk assessment completed, making sure you're following policies and procedures in place.
yeah,
Then we have the Children Act 2004, again, keeping children safe in education, establishing there's no neglect, no sort of abuse, and making sure that there's positive learners' welfare all the time. And data protection, exactly what it says to do with confidentiality.
yeah,
The awarding bodies that we have to deal with, making sure that we are following the requirements of the awarding body, because they're the ones that have kept us going. Things like Ofsted, Education Inspection Framework,
yeah. I
making
got it.
sure.
I got it.
Sorry, what was that, Bullen?
I got it last week of that visit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really important to follow, the quality of work we offer because Ofsted are always, checking up on things like that.
yeah,
Making sure we've got professional policies in place, things like professional standards for teachers, SET, which is Society for Education and Training, code of practice, and internal code of practice, which is what the organisation will say. Um, Also, the lesson planning as well, making sure they are inclusive, safe, and learner focused. Um, and then assessments, making sure assessments are conducted fairly, validly, and reliably, and making sure professionalism is put in place.
mm,
1.3, analyze the relationship and boundaries between the teaching role and other professional roles. So teachers interact with different agencies and relationships with learners. So positive relationships, teachers must build rapport, motivate and support learners, creating a safe and respectful environment. In regards to boundaries, teachers should avoid becoming over familiar with responsibilities. Relationship with colleagues, making sure the balance is crucial. There's enough collaboration. So
yeah,
teachers work with each other's, and other assessors, internal verifiers, and support each other. And, boundaries are really important in respecting individuals as well.
mm,
Analysis, so effective collaboration improves learner experience. Accountability, so teachers report to program leaders, and boundaries, teachers must respect management decisions while maintaining professional boundaries.
mm,
Relationship with managers and organizations, so making sure that awarding bodies, you adhere to any sort of requirements of the awarding bodies to make sure there's quality assurance. Parents and guardians, especially anyone under the 18, you need to be liaising with their parents and making sure about their progress, and agencies as well.
mm,
Importance of maintaining boundaries, things like safeguarding, so protects both learners and
yeah,
teachers. Professionalism maintains respect and authority. Role clarity prevents role overlap or confusion, and ethical practice ensures fairness, impartiality, and trust.
yeah,
Um, Then we look at 2.4, which is describe points of referral to meet needs of learners. So teachers must recognize, if there's any sort of learners that fall within any sort of needs that they need, specialist support and so, safeguarding issues or anything like that. So referrals within the organizations, you can refer people for safeguarding, for DSO, which is designated safeguarder officer within the school, who will look at whether the safeguarding of the child has been put in place, well-being. The learning support or SEND team, who looks at children with additional needs, things like mobility needs, autism, dyslexia, and the
yeah,
student welfare, emotional needs of students as well, or learners. ICT, library studies, any sort of extra referencing or anything. Three points of referral outside the organisation, things like counselling services. If they've got any issues, if
yeah,
they need mental health issues or anything like that. Financial advice services, if there's any issues about budgeting, debt recovery, career, services and specialist services like NSPCC. Application to the law. So in practice, learners may present with a range of needs requiring maybe study skills or learning support, learners with mental health. It could be safeguarding issues or any sort of financial worries as well. So in summary, the response identifies internal key and external referral points in learning outcome 1, and these are some of the references, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So now we'll go on to learning outcome 2. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's okay.
Let's just learning outcome 2. Bring that up. Learning outcome 2. So can you see this, Bulent?
Yeah, I can see now.
Okay, so this is learning outcome 2 is to be able to use initial and diagnostic assessment to agree individual learning goals with learners, okay?
Okay.
So here we'll be looking at initial and diagnostic assessment and the learning cycle, and teacher and learning agreeing on learning goals. So purpose of initial assessment is to identify prior learning. So look at the individual's prior skills or knowledge or qualifications. Determine any sort of learning styles such as VARC or Honey and Mumford learning styles. Assess any sort of supports, whether they've got dyslexia or, dyspraxia or autism, additional learning. Make sure you address them. And then the purpose of diagnostic is to make sure they are in the right course at the right time, at the right level as well. Pinpoint any strengths and areas for development, and look at their individual learning, so results such as SMART goals. Plan differentiation. So teachers have to adapt their lesson plans towards the students if they've got varied needs or anything. Make sure you are catering to the differentiating between the learners, identifying their learning styles and motivation, and talking to learners about their goals, strengths, and barriers as well. And obviously, testing individual specific skills. Agreeing individual goals. So once you've discussed with the learner, the teacher should ensure that they understand the strengths and areas to improve, get SMART targets in place and learning plans in a goal. Make sure the benefits, so for learners, encourage ownership of learning, build for teachers, inform lesson planning, differentiation and support strategies, and for organizations, ensure compliance with awarding bodies. 2.1, explain why it's important to identify and meet the individual needs of learners. So every learner comes to education with different backgrounds, abilities, and aspirations. So identifying these individual needs is essential for all learners to make sure, there's equality in place. Importance of identifying needs, making sure you are, in line with the awarding body and also the law, Equality Act, making sure that you are, recognizing if a child has autism or anything like that, that you are putting assessments in place fairly and there's equality in place, inclusive and equality. Supporting progression, making sure that the understanding learners points to allow for realistic goals for the learner, and safeguarding and well-being, especially if they have mental health issues, making sure they're in a supportive learning environment. Importance of meeting learners' needs. You've got personalized learning, so teaching strategies. You need to put teaching strategies in place to make sure you are supporting the learner. So if the supporter needs visual aids or, things like that, you need to make sure that's extra support for them. Breaking down barriers, so meeting any sort of obstacles, language barriers, disability, allowing the learners to participate. Encouraging independence, making sure that the learners manage their own learning, because it's really important, especially children with SEND, that you make sure they're independent and they're confident in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And having positive learning environments, making sure that learners are valued and respected. Because some learners, especially like you said, you work with SEND, they do get upset if you say something to them.
It's totally sure.
It's a lot more difficult than working with people with not any special needs.
Yeah, is the mainstream is sometimes like easy, and the
Yeah.
SEN is
Sometimes they
like
do get
challenging.
upset. Yeah, I know I have a special need niece and she's 33 and I do know they do get upset.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got to kind of cater to their needs. You've got to make sure they're respected and they feel valued as well in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
Meeting individual needs reflects the teacher's responsibility under the Equality Act, professional standards, and Ofsted as well. So 2.2, analyze the role and use of initial and diagnostic assessment in agreeing individual learning goals. So making sure you are putting this in place at the key stage of learning cycle. And these are the foundation and everything to support the individual's progression, inclusivity. And you need to make sure that this is done right from the start. So the role of initial assessment conduct before the start of the program identifies learners' prior knowledge, establish baseline abilities, and highlight barriers to learning. So this is just a table to show you the role of initial purpose. So the first one is establish starting points and
Yeah.
identify prior learning, assess support needs and motivation and aspiration. And in the boxes are examples and benefit for goal setting. The role of the diagnostic assessment is to conduct at early stage, provide in-depth analysis of strengths and weakness, identify their learning styles, and help. It helps you as a teacher to differentiate their learning styles as well. The role of diagnostic here in the table, it shows literacy, English, numeracy, maths, ICT, and learning styles. So it looks at the different elements, the assessment methods, and the impacted on learning goals as well. So we look at link assessments to individual, which is, and then visual models as well. So agree SMART goals, make sure it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And make sure you record in ILPs, the individual learning plan, and make sure you review regularly as well, the progress as well, make sure. And here you need to look at the initial assessment as well. And you've got the to look at the analysis where you look at the strengths, challenges, and the impact. Because when you do something, it's not always going to be easy. You're going to have challenges, you're going to have analysis in place, you're going to be able to, may have issues in place at the start, but then it becomes better. 2.3, use methods of initial and diagnostic assessments to agree individual learning goals. So you have to use individual learning plans. Why do you think individual learning plans are important?
Yeah, because especially in SEN, individual learning goals, like in the class, you can make like one plan, you can't, and say, oh, this is our plan. Every kid has a different ability to do that. That's why every kid has a different goals. Then
Yes, yes,
you
sure.
can make a structure, then you can put in this structure individual learning goals. And then like you
Yes.
can create equality, you know, and you
Yeah,
can,
so it's easier to put that in place for the learner.
yeah,
So methods of initial diagnostic assessment. So you have initial methods, which is application form enrollment, and interview where you're supporting gathering prior learning and support their support needs. You also got basic skills, making sure you've established any sort of baseline maths and English needs, learning styles, what the learner prefers and how you approach to planning, diagnostic methods, written tasks, practical tasks, and self-assessment questionnaires. 3, using assessments to agree goals. So assessment outcomes to establish meaningful goals. So reviewing outcomes, exploring aspirations, and using the SMART goals to identify that. Again, individual learning plans to agree and with the learner and make sure everything is signed as well. An example in practice, one learner identified through a diagnostic maths assessment struggled with percentages. Together was set the following goal, the SMART goal. By the end of first term, improve confidence with percentages by 1 practice worksheets per week and scoring at least 70% in online quizzes. And this was recorded on their individual learning plan.
yeah,
So 2.4 is record learners' individual learning goals. So recording that is really important because it's clear to the learner what they're working towards and progress, review and accountability for you as a teacher and the learner. And it evidences it for like external bodies like Ofsted. Methods, so paper-based individual learning plans, electronic individual learning plans, and target setting sheets. And this is an example of an individual learning plan that you can look at in your own time, okay? Now we're going to just go on, these are the references for learning outcome 2. We'll just go on to now learning outcome 3. So can you see this? Or
Yeah, I can see that.
it says learning outcome 3, be able to plan inclusive teaching and learning. Inclusive teaching ensures everyone is, protected and it's inclusive, and we don't care about the person's background, and we are removing any sort of barriers. So equality is really, really important in this, okay? So it's, it needs to be put in place. Key principles of inclusive planning: learning-centered activities. Make sure you are using them in line with the learner's needs and abilities. Equality and diversity. Make sure you design the value to the learners to prevent any sort of discrimination. Differentiation. Every learner learns differently, so you need to put all the learning plans in place. Accessibility, make sure resources are available. Motivation and engagement, make sure you sustain interest and participation for the learner. Steps in planning inclusive teaching and learning: identifying learner needs, setting aims and objectives, designing differentiated activities, select resources and methods, and embed English and maths and digital skills, and plan for assessment and formative and feedback. Example of an inclusive learning plan is just there for you to have a look at. And benefits of inclusive learning. So it improves access, raises achievement, promotes equality, so reduces any sort of barriers. Learners feel valued and supported, and also aligns with the professional body requirements. 3.1, devise a scheme of work in accordance with internal and external requirements. So a scheme of work is a plan that breaks down a course manageable with units and teaching and learning, and it shows how they will be taught and how over what period of time is a scheme of work. Internal and external requirements. So internal requirements, the organization's policies, equality and diversity, safeguarding inclusive practices, resources, ICT workshops, library resources. External requirements: meet the awarding body criteria, national curriculum, and make sure you meet in Ofsted requirements and the legal framework for equality and diversity. Steps in devising a scheme of work. You have to analyze the syllabus and outcomes. So check with the awarding body what the requirements are. Plan sequence. Sorry?
Yeah, now I'm listening. I'm saying
yeah, it's really important to plan a scheme of work, isn't it? To make sure you allocate time, you plan everything so it's linked to the assessments. Make sure you are putting in place the learners, taking into account learners' needs, when you're doing that.
We are talking about MTP, right?
Yeah.
I did 5 MTP for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have to take into account all the learners' needs and everything when you did that?
Sorry, say again.
Did you take into account the learners' needs and differentiation? And
yeah, I did that.
Yeah, that's really good. So, it identifies that you've taken into account, correctly what the learner's needs are.
Yeah, I did that.
Example of scheme of work. So this is an example for you to have a look at in your own time. Benefits of a well-designed scheme of work. So it provides structure and consistency for the learner and the teacher, and ensures that you're complying with the organizationals and the awarding bodies. It builds progression and continuity, allows flexibility, and also acts as a reference for managers if they're checking anything.
Okay.
3.2, design teaching and learning plans with respect to the individual goals and needs of learners and curriculum requirements. So teaching learning plan, which is called a lesson plan, is a detailed framework of how learning objectives will be achieved in a single session or series of sessions. Unlike the scheme of work, the teaching plan is more specific and designed to meet the learning needs of the individuals. Key features of an inclusive teaching plan. So it's linked to curriculum requirements, ensures that the session meets awarding body outcomes, And then learner-centered as well, addresses the goals and aspirations agreed during ILPs, and differentiated activities designed on a different level. Teacher template, teaching and learning plan is there. This is a learning inclusive lesson plan for a 90-minute session.
Yeah.
Benefits of responding to individual curriculum needs: it ensures that there's fairness, access, and participation for all learners, encourages learners to take ownership of their own goals, and keeps teachers aligned with the awarding bodies and promotes any sort of confidence and achievement as well. 3.3, explain how own planning meets the individual needs of learners. So effective lesson planning is not just about delivering curriculum, it's about ensuring that every learner can access, engage with, and achieve your intended outcomes. Identifying individual needs. So a range of approaches are used to identifying individuals' needs, things like academic needs, literacy, maths, learning styles and preferences. Do they like visual? Do they like auditory? Do they like kinesthetic? Special educational disabilities like SEND, and making any adjustments in place.
Yeah.
And their personal goals, it should be linked to their future further goals as well. How planning responds to learners' needs. So planning is structured to ensure inclusivity and progression by addressing a range of learners' needs. So differentiation of tasks, activities are designed to differentiate for the learner's needs. Variety of methods, so ICT, practical activities, inclusive resources used like handbooks and resources. Please allow for any sort of plans for additional support, and embedding any wider skills. Maybe they need, skills like English or maths, and reviewing the feedback. Example in practice is just there for you to have a look at. 3.4, explain ways in which teaching and learning plans can be adapted to meet the individual needs. So they need to make sure they remain inclusive. Students have a very different backgrounds, they have different preferences, not everyone is the same, so you need to cater towards that child's needs. Okay.
Okay.
Ways of adapting teaching and learning, differentiation, again, resource adaptation. It's really important to have resources in place. If you're adapting something towards the learner's needs, resources need to be incorporated in place for learners with disabilities or anything. Flexible teaching methods, face-to-face, remote, embedding support. It could be things like literacy and maths, ongoing assessments, and there's an example there in place as well. 3.5, identify opportunities for learners to provide feedback to inform inclusive practice. And this is strengthened when learners regular opportunities to share their views on learning, teaching, and learning, gathering feedback. Feedback's really important because it's formal opportunities for, teaching quality, your resource, inclusivity, making sure, you've got one-to-one meetings where learners can discuss any sort of needs and support they need. Informal opportunities, class discussion with question and answer session, quick anonymous feedback, and online polls as well. They help with instant feedback, and peer collaboration as well. Using feedback to inform inclusive learning, making sure you plan to include different learning styles, improve accessibility, adjust pace of lessons as well, and embedding more support within the lessons as well. And these are the references for learning outcome 3. So,
Okay.
learning outcome 4. Be able to create and maintain a safe, inclusive teaching and learning environment. Can you see that, Bulan?
Yeah, I can see that.
Thank you. So here we're looking at creating and maintaining a safe. Why do you think it's so important to create and maintain a safe, inclusive learning environment?
Because you can help for your teaching. This is the first. And the second one, you can make sure the kids are in safe, they are ready to learn.
Yeah.
And it's and the safeguarding as well.
It's very important, to make sure everything is inclusive. So you are supporting, learning and, teaching environment. Creating a safe learning environment, making sure that everyone is respected, is punctual, and there's positive behaviour. Having health and safety in place, carrying out risk assessments, ensuring everything is safe for the individual. Creating an inclusive environment, making sure you're following, keeping children safe, and organisational policies. Excuse me. confidentiality, GDPR, and equality and diversity as well. Making sure you've got inclusive resources, things like large print, visuals,
Yeah, visuals.
differentiated learnings for different learners, positive, building this relationship with them to maintain professional boundaries, behavior management and feedback and reviewing, cultural awareness, making sure you're valuing different cultures and experience that in classroom as well, and encouraging people to allow and collaborate with each other. Maintaining a positive and safe environment, so using learner feedback, observation, flexibility, listening to punctual learners, and also punctuality and resources need to be adapted to make the inclusive learning. So safe inclusive learning makes you plan consistently and reflect on things as well. 4.1, explain why it's important to promote appropriate behavior and respect for others. So, promoting appropriate behavior and respect is a fundamental part of inclusive learning environment. It creates this positive learning atmosphere, so making sure that everyone is calm and focused and productive. It maximizes learning time, so good behavior reduces disruptions, allowing learners to concentrate on their goals. Also encourages responsibility, so promoting helps learners take ownership of their own work and discipline. Importance of promoting respect for others, so respectful environment reduces the risk of bullying. Respect ensures learners of all backgrounds, abilities, and builds collaboration, so respectful supports each other. Example in practice, respect is an employability skill ensured in professional practice. And then, promoting appropriate behavior is essential for ensuring fairness, inclusion, and effective learning. 4.2, explain ways to promote equality and value diversity within the class. So making sure your equality and diversity is an essential part of your inclusive learning by having fair access to learning opportunities, respecting individuals' background, ability, and culture. So ways to promote this is ensuring that resources, our teaching methods are available for all learners. Things like large print, what we mentioned earlier, that you're non-discriminatory when you treat people regardless of their age, gender, race, disability. Differentiating, every learner is not the same. We need to make sure we are planning in differentiating for each learner, and consistent behavior. Make sure you apply rules and consistency to avoid bias or favoritism. Ways to value diversity, inclusive content. So use examples of case studies, celebrate differences, their cultural festivals, things like that. Collaborate learning, so use learners from different backgrounds to work together. Practical examples, use someone from bilingual background, from a different culture, working with someone, who's not from the same culture to experience things. So promoting that in class is really important, equality and diversity. 4.3, establish or sustain a safe working inclusive environment. It's established to make sure that everything is inclusive from the start and it's safe and respected and equality. So establishing this learning environment, with the learners, make sure you encourage ownership, health and safety compliance, risk assessment, clear instructions, sustaining a safe, inclusive learning environment. So safeguarding, ensuring how to raise concerns or follow organizational safeguarding, equality and diversity, embedding that into your resources. Also, initial assessment, making sure, if you have learners that need special needs from early stage, like SEND or ESOL, make sure you put the adjustments in place. Consistent behavior, applying fairly inappropriate behavior and differentiating, planning, learning for regular support, and reflecting as well. Teachers need to reflect on their own practices, so feedback, CPD. And these are the references for learning outcome 4. And then we've got learning outcome 5. Outcome 5, you can see that, yeah? Be able to deliver inclusive or teaching and learning practice. So key features of inclusive delivery is differentiation in practice, adopting tasks to suit learners, which we've kind of gone through a little bit in all the learning outcomes as well. Varied teaching methods, discussions, group demonstrations, inclusive resources, again, promoting respect and participation, monitoring, adapting in real time, making sure you are learners are more motivated when it comes to class.
Yeah.
5.1, analyze the effectiveness of teaching and learning approaches used in your own area of specialism in relation to meeting the individual needs of the learners. Make sure you put inclusive strategies in place. You differentiate, active learning approaches, group discussions, promoting engagement, teamwork, and making sure you are differentiating and scaffolding, tasks for different learners. Blended learning and digital tools, so making sure you're interactive, Kahoot, Quizlights, making sure you are in identifying kinesthetic learners, embedding functional skills like maths and English. A lot of this we've repeated from the different learning outcomes, okay? And so I've mentioned on the teaching and learning. 5.2, analyze benefits of communication methods and media used in own area of specialism. So effective communication is central to inclusive teaching and learning within a specialist area. You need to make sure you have communication in place. So verbal communication, immediate feedback, written communication, handouts and feedback forms. You've got benefits, permanent record of instructions, and supports and limitations may disadvantage learners with dyslexia. And then you've got non-verbal communication, things like resources, visual cues, creates a positive engagement in the classroom atmosphere. Online resources benefits flexibility and accessibility for the learner as well. And there's also limitations of them as well. 5.3, analyze the effectiveness of resources used in your own area of specialism in relation to meeting the individual needs of learners. So introduction resources are central to any sort of teaching and learning. You need resources, don't you? You need resources for everything. Resources are the main core of any sort of professionalism to do a good teaching job. Printed resources, handout worksheets, maybe case studies, that need to be put in place. Digital resources, effectiveness, engagement, limitations, practical resources, visual resources as well that may need to be looked at. Example in practice, so you've got specific needs for people with visual impairments or specific needs, that need visual resources in place, requires awareness. So you've got a combination of resources to support diverse learners' needs, PowerPoints, it could be, any sort of requirements of any sort of, resources, things like interactive resources, a variety of resources need to be used to make sure it's an inclusive environment. 5.4, use inclusive teaching and learning approaches and resources, including technologies to meet individuals' needs. So you need to make sure you're engaging and using different technology for inclusive learning. So things like offering scaffolding worksheets for learners who need extra support, extension activities, group work to improve their confidence, inclusive resources, active learning, role plays, case studies, blended learning, traditional resources for ESOL, handouts, quizzes, Kahoot, Padlet. These are examples that you could use in your class to help improve the learning. Technology is really important in the classroom because it helps the individual learn and get better. Demonstrate ways to promote equality and diversity. Like we said earlier in the learning outcomes, promoting equality and diversity is part of the Equality Act.
Yeah.
And it's part of legislation. So it means making sure that everyone's treated equal and fairly, fair access to resources, consistent behaviour, differentiated delivery, inclusive learning outcome, making sure that there's cultural and social differences, and group tasks designing to mix, individual backgrounds together as well. Equality is promoted through fair, consistent access and differentiation and embedded inclusive content into your learning styles, making sure that your projects are adapted to be inclusive. 5.6, adapt teaching and learning approaches, resources, including technologies to meet individuals' needs. So adaptation is an essential part of inclusive learning, making sure your lesson plans are inclusive. You've got resources in place to make sure you are looking at different abilities, adapting teaching approaches, so differentiation, flexible grouping, varying delivery methods, adjusting pace, and accessible handouts, adapting resources, so you've got visual support, alternative to support, assistive technology, interactive quizzes, so Kahoot, Quizlet, Padlet, making sure, and a visual learning environment as well, making sure you're providing resources on Moodle as well. Adapting technology, so you've got Jamboard, Moodle, to make sure that learners are being able supported and that you've got assessment methods in place for them.
Okay.
So 5.7, communicate with learners and learning professionals to meet individual learning needs. Communication is a key part of any sort of organization, or especially teaching. Why is communication so important, Bunzler?
Because like you can explain yourself and you can understand what they need and you can help them in the lesson if
Yeah,
you communicate good. Oh, I can approach from that way, or
yeah,
like they don't like the other way. That's why I
yeah.
believe communication is good.
Yeah, it's really important. So you've
Yeah.
got active listening using tutorials and one-to-one discussions with learners, clear instructions, communicate with them through different channels. It may be email, maybe Google, maybe Teams. Encourage and motivate learners through praise, achievement, having learning support assistants there to share lesson plans, special educational needs team for SEND, safeguarding and assessors, verifiers, managers, and that collaborate together to make sure everything's done. So
Yeah.
that's learning outcome 5. Next one is learning outcome 6. Um, and this is looking at, again, at being able to assess learning in education and training.
Yeah.
Um, Purpose of assessment, initial assessment is really important because it identifies strengths and weaknesses. And then formal assessments, quizzes, observations, summative assessment, a formal measurement, assessment methods, diagnostic assessment, practical observations, written tasks, oral questioning, peer and self-assessments. Inclusive assessments, making sure you are in line with, making sure your learners' needs, and preparing assessments towards their needs. So differentiating learners' needs, maybe people with alternative formats, oral presentations instead of reports for dyslexic learners, ensuring adjustments are put in place, for the learners. Making sure you are putting them in place so that assessments are accurate and they're in place for that learner. 6.1, explain the purpose of types of assessment in education and training. So you have different types of assessments. And the purpose is, initial assessment is to understand what the learner's skills are at the start, formative assessments, and then we've got summative assessments as well. And assessment feedback is really important for the learner, making sure we are following Ofsted requirements and supporting inclusivity. Types of assessment, so we've got initial assessment, formative assessment, diagnostic assessment, peer and self-assessment. And these are examples in class as well that you could use to make sure you identify your learners' needs. 6.2, analyze the effectiveness of assessment methods in relating to meeting the individual needs of learners. So assessment is effective when measures learning fairly, accurately, inclusively, and it highlights engaging learners and removing any sort of barriers. Analysis of assessment methods. So you've got written assessments, essays, reports, an exam, effectiveness of them and limitations, practical assessments, role play projects, oral presentations and vivas and question and answer session, how they support certain types of learners. And then you've got digital online assessment, quizzes, e-portfolios, interactive, and then peer self-assessment as well. Different learners like different assessments because it's just to identify the barriers and what needs they need as well. 6.3, use types of methods of assessment, including peer and self-assessment, to involve learners in the assessment, meet the individual needs, enable learners to produce an assessment and sufficient and current, and meet the requirements of the awarding body as well. So peer assessments, learners review each other's work using clear criteria and then mark on the basis of that. Self-assessment, where the learner reflects on their own progress. Formative assessments, quizzes, observations, and then meeting individuals' needs through tutorials, differentiation, and reasonable adjustments that need to be put in place. Making sure that the assessments are valid, reliable, sufficient, authentic, and current as well. And then making sure that you are following the internal and external standardization policies in place and the awarding bodies as well. Use a range of assessment types. Peer and self-assessment ensures learners are actively individual needs and assessed. So you need to make sure assessments are equal as well for everyone. 6.4, use questioning feedback and contribute the assessment program process. So types of questioning feedback, make sure you are questioning, using questioning strategies to confirm that, the learner is understanding. You're identifying and filling in gaps and encouraging learners to take their own ownership as well. Using feedback in assessment, the whole point of feedback is to make sure that they identify any areas of improvement, motivate the learners, be specific, make sure that, they're giving constructive feedback, like we mentioned earlier as well, making sure that, the learners know what they have to do next time.
Yes.
It's really important to give feedback to the learners to make sure they understand. Record of outcomes of assessments meet internal and external requirements. Recording assessment outcomes is part of assessment record. Make sure that you are having organizational systems in place, policies and procedures, records are kept as well, monitoring learner progress and confidentiality as well. External requirements demonstrate the evidence of the awarding body. External factors, make sure you are following the requirements of the external bodies as well. Standardization, making sure that everything is fair and, putting rubrics in place. Observation reports and individual learning plans are put in place. 6.6, communicate assessment information to other professionals with an interest in the learner's achievements. So, sharing assessment ensures learners' progress is motivated and additional support is put in place. It's really important sometimes to share information to show that, if you identify any learning needs, you are able to contact other people outside and, work with them to get that person through. Methods of communicating, you can have formal reports, you can have team meetings, electronic systems, emails and feedback logs, and standardization meetings as well to make sure that assessments are put in place. So that's learning outcome 6. Next one, learning outcome 7, which is being able to implement expectations of the minimum core in planning, delivering and assessing inclusive teaching and learning. So the minimum core ensures that all learners develop functional maths and skills alongside their subject area, making sure that they are implementing, that into their learning. So, English is reading, writing, speaking, listening, maths is numeracy.
Yeah.
Digital skills, it's really important to make sure you identify this at the start so you're able to implement that into their learning. English is trying to reinforce things like their spelling and using the correct terminology. Maths is using, calculating and things like that, and digital and using VLEs. So make sure that's implemented as well, making sure that they implemented in their teaching because it enhances their learning, but also makes them think about, problem solving and ensures that it's part of their learning as well. And embedding this into their learning will gain them essential skills. 7.1, analyze ways in which minimum core elements can demonstrate in planning, delivering, and assessing inclusive teaching and learning. So embedding these core make sure that the learners develop transferable skills. The holistic approach promotes inclusivity, employment, and lifelong learning. So English, maths, embedding this into the classes is really important. ICT as well, and making sure you're planning towards these as well in your learning. So demonstrating the minimum core in delivery, encouraging terminology in class, which is English modeling written instructions, using real life examples for maths and digital delivering integrated such as Kahoot, Padlet, Moodle, things like that. Core assessment, written assessments in English, maths demonstrating numeracy through calculation, digital submitting work electronically, through Moodle and things like that. Example in assessing learners analyzed things like text in English and maths and making sure you're embedding that into your learning as well for that learner. 7.2, apply minimum core elements in planning and delivery, exclusive teaching and learning. So making sure you've integrated English, maths, digital skills is really important. Why do you think it's so important in your learning?
Can I hear? Can you ask again?
Yeah, why do you think embedding English, maths, and digital ICT into your learning is so important?
Yeah, because it's like, to be honest, it's the basic skills and
Yeah,
maths, English, ICT, digits. You can
yeah,
use these ones for
yeah,
every lesson.
yeah. And making sure you're embedding that, your timetables are around that, your lesson plans are around that, your planning and, embedding research into that, making sure, you're encouraging learners to use more ICT skills and, demonstrating their skills is really important. And applying this into your core planning helps the learner develop not only subject area but literacy, numeracy, and skills for real life situations. So this is learning outcome 7. Learning outcome 8 is the final one that we can go through. Is being able to evaluate your own practice in planning, delivering, and assessing inclusive teaching and learning. So when reflecting on your planning, consider curriculum design, making sure your design is in plan with the diverse learning needs, accessibility, whether the, documents and materials will be available digitally for that purpose, learning objectives, and to also, if there's any barriers, language barriers, technology, any sort of strategies in place, make sure. So evaluating delivery of inclusive teaching methods need to be looked at, interaction, so other learners participating in discussion. Class environment is really important, that everyone's supportive. Adaptability, an example, peer learning, and then evaluating assessment of inclusive learning. Assessment should be fair, flexible, inclusive methods. So you could use presentation, assignments, quiz, and then giving feedback as well. Continuous professional development, and that's for you, self-reflecting,
Yeah.
keeping a teaching journal, recording your lessons, seeking observations, learner feedback. So collecting feedback regularly to give you an insight of your teaching perspectives, and attending training is really important. Attending training on equality and diversity and on SEND as well, and putting action plans in place like smart objectives. Ask yourself, what are your strengths, what are your gaps, how can you better them. 8.1, review the effectiveness of your own practice in planning, delivering, and accessing inclusive teaching and learning, and taking account of your views and learners and others. So planning is really important. It's designed to give you accessible to learners and making sure that learners have reported the visual aids. Colleagues have noted planning demonstrates inclusive learning and removes barriers and supports people with learners with additional needs. Review of your delivery. So during your delivery, varied teaching strategies are used. Observation and feedback fosters a safe, respectful classroom environment. So some quieter learners have to participate less frequently. So you need to address issues like that. A range of assessments, so Padlets, presentations to ensure inclusive fairness, and giving feedback is really important. Colleagues have recommended further formative feedback, and everyone, especially with learners with special needs, you need to take into account others' views on how you could improve. Learners' feedback is really important. Why do you think learners' feedback is so important?
Because then you can understand where they are,
Yeah,
how much they learn, and
yeah.
what we need
What they
to
understand,
improve.
what they want to improve, don't they?
Yeah,
And then you've got colleagues' feedback who gives you feedback on strengths in classroom engagement, classroom management, and how you can better yourself. Self reflection, that's so important to self reflect yourself and see how you could have done better. This
yeah,
feedback is really important because it will help you foster this inclusive learning environment and make sure any improvements can be made. 8.2, identify areas for improvement in your own practice. Areas for improvement could be greater integration of technologies. So lesson plans are inclusive, but further development could be achieved in embedding, maybe interactive platforms, resources, anticipating barriers. Barriers address things like, the introduction of more assessments to ensure teaching, broader differentiating strategies, using more resources in class, making sure you are inclusive, encouraging participation from quieter learners. If there's learners in your class that are quite quiet, make sure you put them in a group and, do a group activity so their voice is heard. Using
yeah,
hard order questioning, so checking on their understanding all the time, making sure they're understanding and checking on that. Balancing teacher learner led activities, so make sure you could provide more opportunities for learner, such as peer teaching, project based learning, and learner choice. Expanding formative assessments as well. Accessibility to assessments are varied, making feedback more interactive. So feedback, giving feedback, encouraging learners to reflect and give feedback and take ownership of their own learning. If someone's done a presentation, you want to give them feedback on how they could have improved. It's a way of learning and making sure you're embedding all that. So this is the final learning outcome, which is learning outcome 8. The
Yeah.
next thing on here is the assignment discussion. Assignment discussion. Where is this? Assignment discussion here. So
Yeah.
the assignment discussion. So we've gone through the learning outcomes. This is the assignment. This is
Okay.
available on Moodle for you. Okay, it just goes through the purpose and everything, but we'll go through the learning outcomes. We've been through 8 of the learning outcomes, and then it will go to the assignment tasks. Can you see here?
Yeah.
So task 1 of 2, there's 2 tasks, okay? Task 1 of 2 includes teaching exercise 1.2,
Okay.
1.3, 1.4, 2.1, 2.2, 3.3, 3.4, 4.1, 4.1, 4.2, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 6.1, 6.2, 7.1. So this includes 7
Yeah.
learning outcomes, okay?
Okay.
Within the 7 learning outcomes that we've just got through, each element is part of them learning outcomes, okay?
Okay.
So task 1 includes learning up to 7 learning outcomes, okay?
Okay.
So instructions, you are required to carry out a review a teaching session of at least 2 hours duration. You should do this physically in your own setting and prepare materials and resources which can deliver in preparation for this. You are required to write a report, okay? In your
Okay.
report, you are required to analyze your own
Okay.
learning, own role and responsibilities in education.
Okay.
Okay, you need to summarize key aspects of legislation, regulatory requirements, and codes of practice relating to your own role and responsibilities. And
Okay.
we looked at that, didn't we? Health and safety and things like that.
Okay.
So when you're doing this, Bunna, make sure this is a heading. Okay.
Okay.
So each point is what you have to cover. So, but make sure you put this as a heading and write the answer under it. Okay.
Okay.
That's how better to write your report like that. Then the second part of task 1 is to analyze the relationship and boundaries between teaching role and other professional roles. Okay, so you look at other professional roles, welfare officer, teaching assistant, anything like that. Okay,
Okay.
and externals, assessors, or anything that will be another heading. Okay, and then you
Okay.
will write the answer. Do not change the wording of that. Okay. The third
Okay.
part of it, describe points of referral to meet the needs of learners. And that's referring people to the needs, people, referrals to maybe welfare officers, anyone like that. Remember, we went through that?
Okay. Yeah, I remember.
So that's the third bit of it, okay? The fourth bit
Okay.
of task 1 is explain why it's important to identify and meet the individual needs of learners. And that will be looking at your plans and things like that, okay? So
Okay.
that, and then the fifth part of it is analyze the role and the use of initial and diagnostic assessment in agreed individual learning goals. And we looked at the assessment, initial and diagnostic assessment, and that's what you need to look at. So
Okay.
that's in this part. Then the next one is explain how your own planning meets the individual needs of learners. Explains ways in which teaching and learning plans can be adapted to meet the individual learners' needs of so you look at lesson plans and you look at
Oh,
how we have to cater to the needs of individual learners and how we have to
okay.
adapt them, okay?
Okay.
Okay, and then the sixth part, explain why it's important to promote appropriate behavior and respect for others, inclusive learning, respecting behavior,
Oh,
in class, things like that. Then the next one is explain ways to promote equality and value and diversity. Okay,
okay.
and the next bit is analyze the effectiveness of teaching and learning approaches used in your own area of specialism in relation to meeting the individual needs of learners. Okay.
Okay.
Then the next bit is analyze benefits and limitations of communication methods and media used in your own area of specialism. Analyze the effectiveness of resources used in your own area of specialism. Resources like we looked at Padlet, things like that.
Yeah.
Next one is analyze the effectiveness of resources used in own area of specialism in relation to meeting individual needs of learners.
Okay.
Then the next one is to explain the purpose and types of assessment used in education, training, and analyze the effectiveness of assessment methods in relation to meeting the individual needs of learners.
Okay.
And the next part of task 1 is to analyze ways in which minimum core elements can be demonstrated in planning, delivering, and assessing inclusive learning. And that was learning outcome 7 we looked at. Okay. So
Okay.
in task 1, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 things to do, okay, in task
Okay.
1 in your report. But make sure you just put them, each one as a heading, and do not change the wording, okay?
Okay.
So there's each one as a heading. I think they've come again. Look, can you see that's another one there?
Yeah.
And then that one there is another one. They maybe
Okay.
got together. So you need to make sure you're putting each one as a heading and then writing about each one, okay?
Okay.
And then you've got task 2. Task 2 is on learning outcome from our learning outcome 2 up to 7. Okay,
Okay.
so 2.3, 2.4, 3.1, 3.2, 3.5, 4.3, 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, 5.7. And this is in the slides, it'll tell you where it is, okay?
Okay.
6.3, 6.4, 6.5, 6.6, and 7.2. Remember I told you about that?
Yeah, I
Here
remember.
you would look at your observed teaching practice. So here you would look at use methods of initial diagnostic assessment to agree individual learning goals with learners.
Okay.
So that's your teaching activity. Record learners' individual goals. You need to devise a scheme of work in accordance with the internal and external requirements. And you need to do the next one, design teaching learning plans which respond to the individual goals and needs of your learners, and
Okay.
identify opportunities for learners to provide feedback to form inclusive practice. You need to establish and sustain an inclusive learning environment, use inclusive resources. You need to also demonstrate ways to promote equality and diversity and adapt your teaching into your approaches and resources, including technologies, to meet individual needs of learners. You need to
Okay.
also communicate with learners and use types of different methods, including peer and self assessment. You need to involve learners in your assessment. You need to meet the individual needs of learners, enable learners to produce assessment evidence that is valid, reliable, sufficient, and authentic, and current, and meet internal and external assessment requirements. You need to also use questioning and feedback processes. You need to have a record of the outcomes of the assessment. You need to communicate the assessment to other professionals,
Okay.
interest, and apply core minimum requirements. And a review of your teaching exercise would be 8.1
Okay.
and 8.2. So this is your teaching requirement. So this is for your observation, yes?
Okay. This is my observation, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So, and then you've got to write a short report. Okay, this is the short report of the effectiveness of your teaching practice, delivering an inclusive teaching. So it's a short report. Okay,
Okay.
areas of improvement in your own practice, the implementation of agreed methods to meet individual
Okay.
learning objectives, how you identify and manage risks and individual training needs, methods of
Okay.
adaptive delivery methods, and ways of encouraging learners to self-evaluate their progress,
Okay.
approaches used to review learner feedback, and ways of supporting learners to qualify future uh, education and training. So delivery and submission. One times Word file or evidence generated for activities 1 and 2.
Well, activities one
4,000
and two.
words. Sorry?
Activities 1 and 2 means task 1 and task 2, right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay.
And then 4,000 words excluding references and appendices, and then observation, grading, and feedback form, which is Appendix 1. So
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can. Have you got any questions on the assignment?
Actually, the thing is,
Yeah.
I I don't know how I'm gonna like finish this. Like
Yeah, I
first.
think after this session you get 2 weeks, but
Yeah,
I think you can ask for more time, Bunle.
yeah. That's why.
Yeah,
What I am thinking. Uh, I Most of it I did
yeah,
it, and most of it I know it,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Just I don't know, I have 20 hours to
Yes.
show it, how I'm gonna show it, and
You,
8 hours
you can,
of
what you can do, Budlet, though, you can ask for more time.
uh, no, like the previous one is include or no?
Sorry?
The previous hours which
Yeah,
I teached,
yeah.
I have pictures, I have videos, I have feedbacks, I have
Oh, okay.
teaching.
Maybe you could use that.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying if it's
Yeah, but
include.
you would have to ask, email them at Learner Works and ask them lot.
Okay, then
Because
I will.
I don't know whether you could use that, but you might be able to,
Yeah, that's why. And
and then you could use that, and that would help you then.
okay, then how did you find it? That one learning styles
Yes,
questionnaire.
so I'm just all these are available on Moodle for you. Can you see this? Yeah, I've just brought
Yeah.
this up now. Can you see that learning styles?
Yeah.
This is on Moodle for you, okay? And this is a questionnaire that you could look at. There's different learning styles and everything, and there's different ways to do it. So these, I just wanted to show you, these are
Yeah.
available on Moodle. So learning style questionnaires here, okay?
Yeah.
So it goes through all the questionnaire designed to identify your learning styles. Then the next one is learner induction feedback. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So that is available on Moodle for you. This is just things I wanted to show you to help you. So these
Okay.
are available on Moodle for you. And then you've got the next one, which is the VARK questionnaire,
Okay.
which is visual, oral, reading, kinesthetic. And that asks you questions on there, which is again available on Moodle for you and shows you how to grade it, the scoring chart as well.
Okay.
That's available on Moodle. And then the next one is the Ofsted report, which looks at teacher learning and assessment in further education, what works well. So this is just a report that you could read in your own time. It's 25 pages and it looks at factors of outstanding practice and things like that. So this is
Okay.
just some things that I've had a look for you on that are available for you on
Okay.
Moodle. But here your grading criteria would be a pass or a fail. Okay, so make
Okay.
sure you are looking at, if you can use the previous one, make sure you email them at learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Make sure that you are, in line with the plagiarism policy as well, that you're not using AI, and make sure you are sticking to the word count as well. Also, make sure you are referencing properly as well, using the Harvard system of referencing, and make sure that you are, when you're doing the tasks, identify it's task one and task two. Make sure it's clear, and make sure that when you go through the tasks, put each one as a separate one. Okay,
Okay.
and then write the answer under it. Okay, make sure you
Okay.
are referring to, it's 4,000 words, but you have a 10% flexibility, and make sure your AI is under 20%. Make
Okay.
sure if you email them at learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk, you can ask for extra time, and make sure you ask about your previous teaching. Maybe that
Okay.
could be part of it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I will ask. I will ask. And uh, AI means like I'm not gonna say to AI, right? But
Yeah.
when I'm searching, what's your suggestion? Or
When
like,
you're searching AI, it has to be below 20% when you submit your
okay,
assignment. So the
then,
best thing is to reword things, paraphrase it in your own words.
okay.
Yeah.
We you show me the model like to 8, and I
Yeah.
think all the questions I can find an answer in the module, and I can use
Yes,
my
yes, you
own
can.
words.
Yes, you can use the slides. It will help you, but also extra research will also help you, get better marks and things.
Okay, then, perfect.
Yeah. So make sure you are sticking to that. But I might have ILP plan for someone that you could just have a look at. Can you see this ILP plan as
Yeah,
well? Individual
yeah.
learning plan. And it's just you put your details in there, address, all the details, information, guidance, pre-entry, things like that. This is an individual learning plan, and these are available on Moodle for you. Okay,
Okay,
participants,
perfect.
these are all like examples that you can have a look at and are available on Moodle. Have you got any questions that you need to
No,
ask?
no, 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 no. I'm clear now.
So
Thank
please
you.
email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. That's where you submit your assignment as well. Email them, ask them about the observation teaching, and make sure you know what you're doing when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
will ask. Yeah, but
Yeah.
now thank you for everything. I'm like,
No, thank you, Budla. It was lovely teaching you. And if you've got any questions, just email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk.
perfect.
Okay.
Then can you send me this video record? Then I can watch it and I can like.
This will be on Moodle for you when they come in on Monday. Okay.
Okay, then.
If not, email them and say, can you send me the link for the video?
Perfect. I will do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh,
Thanks a lot, Bunle.
have a
Lovely
good fun
teaching
day.
you, and good luck with getting on with your assignment.
Thank you. I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye
Have a
bye.
nice weekend. Bye.
Bye.